Over the last few weeks, we've really been intentional about refining our messaging. We stepped into our identity as a product over these last couple of years and had really come into focus this last 6 months. We saw this data that was proving like, wow, our approach is consistently growing coffee shops in ways that point of sales aren't. And we ran into a little bit of initial friction because we're the only ones in the industry that can guarantee growth. And so we were trying to understand, where are we missing owners at? Because early adopters would grab it and they would run with it and grow and would be big advocates. But now we got to make this leap from just resonating with early adopters to being able to go and dominate the industry if we are really going to achieve our mission of transforming the space in a way that better serves small businesses. And so those conversations that we've been having have been focused on, how do we articulate what we're doing and why in a way that's going to land and just make sense and be obvious to owners. So, the way we look at it is like similar to if you would have asked folks before the car was invented what they need, they would have said a faster horse. They wouldn't have said a car. And so we're selling a car at the time that people are just riding horses. Or we look at the Airbnb example of, when the paradigms around travel and lodging were just hotels, and then you're selling Airbnb, that's a whole different paradigm shift. So we had some big breakthroughs with our conversations this week, and I wanted to give an update on it. What we really learned is that there's two big paradigms that we need to shift. There is a big paradigm that exists right now where for coffee shop owners, a point of sale is really just kind of an afterthought for coffee shop owners, and they're seen as just tools that you have to use and pay for to accept card payments, essentially. And then the business models of the Square and the Toast of the world are to then build a bunch of software as a service products that attach to that then owners have to pay monthly, even if those services don't actually create more value or a greater return on that investment than what they invested in. So it creates this really big burden for coffee shops. And so for us, we look at this from a standpoint of, okay, our mission is to create the same kind of benefits for independent businesses that Starbucks enjoys, for example. And we're realizing that Starbucks looks at that point of sale very differently, with a very different paradigm than small business owners. So a lot of people don't know this, but more than half of all orders at Starbucks are through their app. They have more people pay using the Starbucks app than use Apple Pay. Like, it's the biggest mobile payments product in the world. And Starbucks, based on the balances left over on their cash cards, qualifies as the 10th largest bank in the world. So think about that scale. And the thing that is most important in terms of a lens is almost all revenue growth that's not created by just opening up more locations for Starbucks comes from their technology. So Starbucks is looking at that point of sale and that customer experience that's on their counter and being like, this is the number one driver for our growth. That's their standard. That's the expectation. That's what all the big chains are doing. Small business owners are looking at it as just a tool, an afterthought, right? Even their loyalty programs, like nobody's ever went out of their way or ordered more than they would have before because a shop was running on Square loyalty or Toast loyalty, because it's just a generic, it's an afterthought. It's I was going to make this order anyway, but it doesn't create the kind of positioning that and the mechanics that keep small businesses top of mind because of a few things. Number one is there is a reality around the customer behavior that Starbucks can accommodate, but independent business owners on their own cannot. So the average American consumes 3 cups of coffee a day. The day part, and our data backs this up, is at breakfast, or basically like at the beginning of your morning commute, late morning, and early afternoon. Those are the 3 biggest moments, the spikes in the usage data that we see. And 80% of orders are to go. So what happens is the independent coffee shops can at best serve about 30% of the demand that customers have for convenient ordering experiences. So 2/3 of those are typically like going to the Starbucks of the world or things like that, especially if you're like, you have short windows and you need to be able to count on it being ready when you arrive. And that's the biggest opportunity for independent businesses. And nobody can do it on their own, not even the chains. Starbucks has, between their owned and licensed stores, over 30,000 shops in the US. Even those ones where the brands have a couple hundred, they're not nearly as convenient. You have to be in every neighborhood. Starbucks has locations that are across the street from each other, and it's for a reason. It's because they know that the barriers in like an urban area, people won't walk across the street. It needs to be on the same side. So that convenience aspect is something that collectively, with independent coffee shops coming together, they can unlock the same advantages from the technology that they use that Starbucks gets, but nobody can do it alone. We have to do it together. And so our role in all of this is essentially just bringing the pieces together into alignment and unlocking the value that comes from just meeting customers and creating experiences that fit the reality of how customers want to purchase, get rewarded, all of that. And it grows the pie for all of independent coffee shops. So that's really what we're focused on now. We're starting to turn back on our sales motion and we're launching shops. We're focusing in a few core markets, but our goal is to get 20% or more of independent coffee shops in every market. If we do that nationwide, we have a more convenient footprint than Starbucks. And what we're seeing in the data is that there's a crazy amount of growth that comes out of that. The other piece of that is to be able to accommodate that growth. All of our workflow tools are really focused on taking away all the time that baristas have to use doing data entry and automating those parts of the process so that shops can grow without stressing out baristas and actually streamlining things and making it easier. We've proven that we've been able to do that, especially with innovations we've had on order management screen. We have kiosks coming out. And so a big principle for us is how do we create financial security for baristas, reduce the cognitive load for them so they can focus on really great service and really great drinks and saving time on unnecessary data entry. And that's how we really unlock the same kind of benefits for independence as, Starbucks of the world gets from their technology. And then now what we're really looking at is being able to bring suppliers in the mix and be able to consolidate that buying power to reduce costs. So the more we're doing it with payment processing already, about 70% of our profit comes from the customers that, when they're away from their loyalty shop, want the convenience of just ordering ahead at another store. We do a small convenience fee, which allows us to keep costs as low as possible for owners and keep it really reasonable for consumers. And then we always allow you to preload a balance to a cash card so you waive all convenience fees. And so in doing that, we were able to keep costs super, super low. And that's sort of our vision moving forward. And then now as we bring in, so processing, at some point, our goal with processing costs is to bring it to zero because we can subsidize it through the new revenue we create for coffee shops and because our revenue model is not based on processing. So we just basically want to give that at cost, so at some point be able to be healthy enough to be able to subsidize it so that it's zero. And then we'll continue from there to be able to add suppliers and use and harness that buying power from across all these independents to be able to reduce the cost of goods. That is also a huge part of what's required. So overall, the way that we see this formula working out, we're getting really excited about it because it's really starting to crystallize and we're seeing the data lock in is, a world where running a small business is an extension of your identity. And if we can make that more accessible, then we create neighborhoods that are just full of these diverse and enriching experiences where everybody has something for them. And as an owner, being able to express your identity and who you are and just create, we think that that's what life's all about. Coffee shops and those types of businesses are just such a really cool expression of that enrich our communities. It keeps more dollars local. It raises the values of the properties in those areas. It creates a sense of community. It creates more safety in neighborhoods. When people know their neighbors' first names, that actually has a bigger impact on reducing crime in the area than adding a bigger police force. So we really believe in making decisions from a place of trust rather than fear, and that's the path to making the world a better place. And it's just an exciting time because we're seeing it happen in the data. Our coffee shops are loving it. We're starting to pick up growth. We'll keep checking in and letting you know how things are going, but just it's an exciting moment and wanted to share that with the community. So thank you all for tuning in. The last thing that I just want to share, just as I'm hearing this come together, I just really want to express gratitude for our team at Joe that has been able to get us to this point. You know, a few years ago when we asked our team to dig our heels in and realized that we were going to go through this evolution in the business from mobile order only to a complete operating system and all the hurdles that would come with that. You know, there was so much uncertainty. We had already been pushing really hard. We had really gone through the ringer through the pandemic and trying to do the right thing for shops and learning a lot of really hard lessons when it came to just how to manage the financial strategy and investors and just trying to adapt to like ever changing environment. And a lot of investors that we had, like major investors, didn't want us to do this play, but our team believed in it and we wouldn't be here without them. We wouldn't have this opportunity without them. So I just want to shout out a few folks in particular. Mario Sanchez for our company has gone from starting as an account manager to now being a head of product, learned that from the studs all the way up. A brilliant guy, the hardest worker I've ever met in my life, and just the prototype of the type of culture we want to build at Joe. Kayla Ortiz, same thing. She came to us as an ambitious early 20-something and has been heroic in how she steps up for partners, evolved as a leader in the business, just knows what a great partner experience and customer experience looks like, pours her heart and soul into everything that she does. And she was there for the beginning of this pivot. Augusto Schiavi, he is our principal engineer and has really shouldered a lot of burden and found ways to thread the needle on, he built out the whole engineering team that we have through his network, and every single person that we brought on reflects the integrity, work ethic, loyalty, and just the kind of resilience that we need in a team to be able to do something like this. I think Brendan and I have really learned that in building a startup, it requires so much more than a great idea and great execution. You can't do that with operating models and strategy decks. At the end of the day, you need people who give a damn and take pride in it in the same way that you do. And I just, I think it's important, especially in this moment where we're starting to have a bit of an inflection point, that we let people know these are the three folks that were really here at the very beginning. I just want to thank you guys so much. We wouldn't be here without you, and you deserve all the credit for this. So shout out to you three. Appreciate it. Want to make sure that we share that note here. It wouldn't be building in public and being authentic if we didn't express that part too. So thank you all for tuning into Building in Public. Thank you to the Joe team for getting us here. Stay along for the ride. It's going to be a good one.